Star Fox is one of those series I never properly understood growing up because I just played Star Fox Adventures and pretty much nothing else. And you know, I loved that game. It was flawed but had nice music, gameplay that reminded me of Zelda, and a colorful world. Imagine my surprise then when later on in life I saw the constant anger from the rest of the fanbase towards this one game. This all left me wondering what the hell I was missing out on. I mean, everyone online talked shit about the game I liked and praised the little game known as Star Fox 64 instead. And for what? To my feeble young mind, all Star Fox 64 was, to me, were more of the same flight levels as seen in the ones in Star Fox Adventures. So, young and stupid as I was, I figured everyone else but me were dumb and in the wrong. And it remained like that until much later in my life when I finally got my hands on Star Fox for the Snes. Okay, for those who don't know, this is Star Fox, even if the name is dumb for us Europeans. Also, I don't really know how I ended up with a German copy, but oh well. So there I was, 12-something years old, finally experiencing the real Star Fox. And you know, it wasn't all that bad. Except for this boss, I swear I could never figure out how to dodge this attack. But okay, aside from me being literal trash at the game, I enjoyed it. And this experience truly changed my view of the franchise for the first time. I mean, even those primitive and honestly kinda awful looking graphics made me a fan. And yes, I know the visuals, while impressive at the time, never really looked good in the same way as something like the Final Fantasy or Metroid games did. So fast forward a few years and I finally played 64, which in turn turned into one of my absolute favorite N64 games. I got Assault and was really impressed with its narrative and graphics, despite some of the actual gameplay sessions being a little lackluster. Later on, I got my hands on Star Fox Zero for the Wii U, and as I've said before, once I got used to the controls, I really loved what the game had to offer. Finally, the long-lost Star Fox 2 came out on the SNES Mini. It's actually quite great, and I found it far more enjoyable than the first Star Fox. And that's every Star Fox game. Oh, please. Fine, alright, Star Fox Command came out on the DS, but wow, this is a poor man's Star Fox, ain't it? I really could never get into this one, no matter how much I tried. I'm sorry, dude. So here we are all of these years later, and we still haven't seen a new entry in the franchise since Star Fox Zero. Sure, Fox and the gang have made appearances in other media, such as in Starlink, but again, we haven't seen a new entry in the core franchise since 2016. So what the hell? What's going on here? Well, it seems like Star Fox has come and gone, so to say. The once ultra-successful series on the SNES and N64 having fallen to atrocious sales and reviews in the later stages of its life. It's honestly kinda depressing when you think about it, given how special these games are and have been for so many. But in general, the story of Star Fox's fall from grace boils down to a couple of major factors. And today, instead of going over the entire franchise's history, which has been done to death already, I want to take a look at this from the perspective of a fan, that being me. Someone who got to experience the franchise in a bit of an odd way rather than what most people have. Woven right, woven wrong, and I suppose most importantly, does Star Fox even have a place in this day and age anymore? But right before that, I urge you to like this video, and as cheesy as it sounds, subscribe if you enjoy what I make here. The vast majority of my viewers on this channel aren't subscribed, unfortunately, but if you were, you'd get to see all of my uploads sent to your subscription feed as soon as they come out, as well as whenever I stream and such. Now, let's get on with the video. When you hear me ask, what makes a Star Fox game a Star Fox game? What do you say? On-the-rails space shooter, on-the-ground exploration, on-the-ground shooting, strategic route planning. Okay, maybe not that one. But really, the answers you come up with is totally valid and all. The problem, however, as I see it, is that the answers you all come up with are too different. And what I mean by that is because of the reckless decision-making on Nintendo's end not to structure the series in a more logical way, it separates fans more than it unites them. But why, you ask? Well, here's an easy-to-follow example. Let's say you like Mario, okay? What kind of Mario? 3D platformers, 2D platformers, RPGs? All of those different kinds of games are easy to separate because they have their own identity, and even if the games feature slight gameplay differences like Mario 64 and Sunshine, the core gameplay is still the same thing. In Star Fox, there's nothing that really outlines what the core of Star Fox is, other than flying around in an Arwing. The most extreme example of this was, of course, people who played Adventures after 64 upon release. Now you might be quick to note that, oh, it's clearly stated in the name that Adventures is an adventure and not a space shooter. While I see what you mean, come on, it was the early 2000s. The name Adventures really meant nothing. I mean, going in your spaceship and fighting Andros as in the earlier games were also adventures, right? I mean, imagine after all this time we've waited for Metroid Prime 4 only for it to come out, and once you boot it up, goddamn Call of Duty comes on. Yeah, that's pretty much the over-exaggerated reaction that some people had to Adventures. So in essence, one major issue with Star Fox is its identity. Because what really happened with the Adventures situation is kinda like what happened with the Metroid Prime Federation Force, but to a lesser extent. And then after that, they kinda tried going back a little with Assault, which barely got any marketing anyway, so the name Assault also didn't really mean anything. And after that, you got the mess that was Command, again different from Assault. And again, after that, not counting 64 3D, you got Star Fox Zero after almost a decade, which really seemed like a return to form aside from the reused story of 64, which is also a reused story from the SNES one, but even then they managed to mess up the controls so hard most people skipped it, thus again messing with the identity of Star Fox. Today, for anyone new looking to get into the franchise, you do understand that what is on the table is 2 old space shooters, one third-person adventure game that most people didn't like for some reason, one space shooter that's more on foot than in space, one awful DS game, and then finally the bad one with terrible controls on the system no one bought. So it might be kinda clear why this franchise has such a hard time getting new people to actually care about it. If you still decided to play these games, then the obvious question is, are they really bad? Despite what you've heard me say, I don't think so. I really like pretty much every Star Fox game, aside from Command. Even if every game in the series are a bit different from each other, the actual games themselves are all well made and definitely not buggy or unpolished, I'd say. That goes for Zero as well. I really feel like the graphical style fits well despite the general flat look of that particular game. But of course, me being me, I think Adventures is the best one. And yes, that is pure opinion, aka not something you have to take as an attack or something. But if the games themselves weren't bad per se, what else led Star Fox to the place it is at today? Can it really just be the identity crisis? No. You see, the most loved games in the series, the SNES one and the N64 one, are very much home versions of something you'd find in an arcade from the 90s. That is something that back in the day was a huge selling point. Games like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat for one made huge deals about how their SNES and Mega Drive or Genesis counterparts were practically as good as the arcades. While Star Fox itself didn't see an arcade release, there were plenty of space shooters that fit the bill somewhat. So in an age where the arcade was seen as the best gaming experience and home console gaming as the second best, something like Star Fox really hit big. But flash forward to today, and that same skill-based short arcade fun isn't considered to be the pinnacle of gaming anymore. So what do you think happens when a game that is very much designed around arcade players in mind comes to the modern era, where arcades really aren't that big of a thing anymore aside from in Japan, South Korea, and some parts of the US? As bad as it sounds, the core issue as I see it is that the most popular style of Star Fox is also the one style that will make it harder and harder to attract new fans. By design, Star Fox is incredibly linear, short, and meant to be replayed over and over to play all of the levels and such. That is something that games of today have been moving away from. And if a game only lasts around 3 hours or so and costs anywhere near €60, then it's very likely a huge chunk of people will see it as a scam. I know for one that happened when I first got the Resident Evil 3 remake. I did end up finishing the entire game in one sitting, and I remember my friends reacted very negatively when I told them that. Saying stuff like, "Damn, that sucks, and €60 for that?" So needless to say, the problem Star Fox is dealing with is a bit of an odd one. The only real times where a Star Fox game have been designed around being a little longer is with Adventures and Assault, but even with that was also dropped after those two games. So while the games themselves weren't bad per se, games need to attract new fans in order to survive, and Star Fox isn't set up to do that, at least not in its current form. So what will become of the fox, the falcon, the bunny, the toad, and the other fox? Time surely will tell, but I have a feeling that despite the challenges that lie ahead, Star Fox will return in some way, shape, or form. Why do I feel this way? The answer really boils down to the ever-changing gaming industry. For a while now, AAA games have been flopping left and right, and these big gaming companies can't figure out why, no matter how hard they try, it seems. But amidst all of the trouble facing many studios today, one company seems unaffected. One company has not laid off hundreds of employees, and one company still makes a crap ton of money from their little underpowered hybrid console. In the face of what some call the next video game crash, Nintendo somehow still keeps on doing better and better, and with the success of the Switch, they've given new life to struggling series such as Pikmin. For once, it seems like no matter what Nintendo releases, it will sell relatively well. So then, with many studios outside Nintendo already having shown affection for Star Fox in the past, I don't think it's entirely unreasonable expecting our lovable fox in space to make a comeback. How that will look is up for debate, but there's a chance that Nintendo actually learned from their time with Star Fox Zero that cramming new gimmicks into a game for the sake of being new isn't the best idea. But then again, there's also a chance that Nintendo does a Nintendo and puts a new gimmick in the game, and whether that will be a good or a bad thing is impossible to say. But as it stands, the Star Fox series is practically on life support, just waiting for the right chance to rise once more in the face of the ever-changing gaming industry, or fall once and for all. But let's not end this on such a gloomy note, right? There's one thing that can turn this whole situation right around in an instant. I'm sure you've heard of a little something known as the Super Mario Bros. Movie, and maybe even the Sonic movies. With the rise of video game movies and TV series being at an all-time high, given they finally seem to be somewhat good, there's room for a lot more content from the big N. For one, there's a Zelda movie in the works, a sequel to the Mario movie, and eventually, maybe a Detective Pikachu too. So why not give something like Star Fox or Metroid a chance on the big screen? In the case of Star Fox, during the launch of Star Fox Zero, Nintendo did release this frankly awesome CGI movie on YouTube titled Star Fox Zero: The Battle Begins. If you haven't seen it already, you really should after watching this. And to not leave anything out, there's this amazing fan-made Star Fox web series known as A Fox in Space by Matthew Gafford. It's a passion project that has been going on for years now. Both A Fox in Space and the Star Fox Zero CGI movie shows that Star Fox works really freaking well as something to watch. So with stuff like the Sonic movie making more money and bringing more attention to Sonic than any recent game has in a long ass while, don't you think that very same phenomena can happen to Star Fox? So in conclusion, I'd say don't give up on our dear Fox just yet. After all, we were so close to Venom. Thanks for watching.